Hi there. Welcome to the Reclaiming Soul Work podcast, where we are reclaiming the sacred and soul work for healers, counselors, practitioners, and social workers, one episode at a time. We like to welcome you to today's episode, where we are talking about what we wish we knew, tips for new social work grads. Today, we're going to share tips and guidance for those who are either newly graduated or preparing for life after grad school.
Welcome, y'all. Reclaiming Soul Work is a heart centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, identity, and ancestral connections through the lens of tarot, divination, mysticism, mental health, and everything in between. Again, welcome to episode 9. My name is Biany. I use she, they pronouns. And I want to make space to acknowledge the land that I'm in, that I'm living in, Lenape territory, also known as Philadelphia. I also want to kind of make space for those who guide me and watch over me, people from Muncie Lenape territory and folks from Taino Macori, Dominican Republic, and then also my queer ancestors who are guiding me, who really been holding me down during this full moon in Aries. It was really intense. And I want to share a little bit about my favorite, I set intentions, like, you know how some people have like a word of the year? Like in
Yes.
true natural form as a witch, I kind of have a word for the season. And my word for fall is trust.
Mm.
So I just wanted to share that. Just been really invited to make space for trust, trusting myself, trusting those in my community that I love and love me, and wanting to practice trust with a lot of intention. And so that's what I really wanted to share. That's my little icebreaker. How about you, mi amiga?
Cool, cool. Thank you so much for that. My name is Sequoia, and I use she and her pronouns, and I live in Anchorage, Alaska, on Dena'ina land. I am originally from Chicago, that occupies quite a few different tribes, and just want to acknowledge that, especially since we are live streaming on Indigenous Peoples Day. And for those that, might be catching this on the replay or listening, after this airs on Spotify, this is the day that we are live streaming. Um, Biani mentioned, the full moon in Aries, and Aries is ruled by the planet of Mars, which is the planet of war. And so I think that that is a really interesting energy to be in right now, especially with so many things going on nationally, globally. I feel like this is a time where it is a little bit easier to recognize how much of a global community we are really in. Um, and yeah, I felt called to talk about that. So here
Mhm.
we are. Um, right now, I would say the other thing that I just want to add is we kind of move from, depending on where you are in the world, um, and I want to keep this to kind of the westernized focus of the seasons. We are shifting from fall into winter. And I'm in a practice right now because I'm preparing for a zine workshop that I'm going to facilitate. And one of the focuses is on the land, giving gratitude or acknowledging gratitude to the land and doing that in a seasonal way. So moving from,
Mm.
the abundance, the bounty, the harvesting from like the summer and the fall into winter, and then being grateful for that, but then also, preparing for giving thanks for what's to come for next year, laying the foundation
Mm.
for that. So I also wanted to offer that.
I really love
Um,
that. Can we? I always want to invite pause, but what I heard was this idea of also acknowledging the seasons, the same way that we acknowledge the land. And it just clicks. Absolutely. And I just love the way that you phrased it. It's such an invitation. I also think it's helpful for folks who feel really, who struggle with preparing for winter, for the season of winter. And I find with my clients, we often have to explore the spiritual meanings for each of the seasons and the purpose of the seasons. And it's a helpful frame. It doesn't mean that it kind of solves their struggles, but yeah, our relationship to the seasons in this system, we don't acknowledge the seasons. We don't acknowledge the land, but we don't even acknowledge the gift of the seasons. So I really appreciate you inviting us there. So thanks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I I feel like being here in Alaska, well, I know, not I feel like, I know that being here in Alaska has definitely just grounded and centered in that practice, just based on Alaska Native folks and their practices around like subsistence fishing. So, meaning, fishing during a particular time of the summer to prepare for
Mm.
the winter and have food available. Um, and I'm grateful in that one. Um, I don't I don't get out and fish myself, but I have community members who do, and they always um, share with me. Like I have
Mm.
salmon and halibut in my freezer right now, and so and me being thankful to them for sharing, their harvest, their fishing abundance with me. I just again just acknowledging the seasons and strength to them and their families, for when they go out and do that, and then to have the relationship for them to share with me. So,
I love that. And this intentional preparing for the season, that is so important. We
mm-hmm,
have to prepare for each season. And each
mm-hmm,
season requires a different part of us.
definitely. It does. It does. Again, another kind of Alaska reference, like right now, um, we've been in fall for quite a few actually months now, and getting ready to prepare for the winter time. So it's more gloomy here, and the sun is taking longer to come up. And so, even in that preparation, like getting my vitamins together that I usually take during this time of the year, ensuring that I'm getting out and about more often during the daylight because, we're again preparing for like 6 hours of sunlight. Um,
Mhm.
like that's what's kind of gotten embedded in my practices. Just related to this concrete um, experience of what happens here naturally. So,
Mhm. It's reminding me of one of the kind of tips I have for those who are listening.
oh, good,
It's
good,
connected to that, the ritual. So
good,
I'm glad that
good.
I love that we're talking about this.
That
Um,
me too, because I love to go off on a tangent. I absolutely love a tangent, but I'm so glad we can tie that all in because I
yeah, this is
felt
not a
called to say
tangent.
that.
Mhm. It's
So
not a
here we
tangent.
are.
I hope for those who are tuning in, hello friends, that like that's a really powerful tip. Like how do we work with the rhythm of the season, the external and the inner seasons, right? Like how do we take care of ourselves? How do we build our toolkit? What kind of practices do we invite per season because it's going to change. What we need in the summer is going to be different than what we need in the winter. And that's really important as care professionals, helping professionals, social workers, spiritual practitioners. Um, this season of our life requires a different part of ourselves.
Hmm.
And we need more tools. Like we need certain tools for the winter. So no, this is not a tangent, not at all.
Okay.
But we'll get back to it. So oh, I think this is you. Yeah. Did you want to share? I mean, I love that you kind of shared so much wisdom. Did you want to kick us off for the topic now?
Sure, sure. So again, just want to welcome everybody again. We are excited to be bringing you episode 9 and looking forward to our next episode as well. But we just want to take the time to congratulate, newly graduated social workers and to those preparing for graduation this year. I know for myself, I went to University of Michigan's there. I went through their 16-month program. So this is the time of
Oh,
year that some folks that are on like a 16-month program are preparing for graduation in December. So,
wow.
yeah, so that resonates a lot. And so today we're going to share some advice and offer some guidance to those of you who are newly graduated or those preparing for life after social work grad school. And the truth is that we believe there are some things you need to know as you prepare for your first job, navigating certain workplace settings, and making space for unlearning and practicing on this journey. So we're going to share the things we wish folks would have shared with us to help us. And we hope that today's episodes offer you the support that you need to be on your way. Biani, I love just the way that they set up a lot of our episodes and this offering to take some notes, grab a notebook pad, because there might be some things that you want to circle back to. I think is really cool.
Yay. Um, and we want to also kind of frame, thank you, friend. We also want to frame, and we're going to keep doing this every time we meet with y'all to really be kind to yourselves, offer yourselves grace. This journey of unlearning is practice, it takes time. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? So it's okay to just be in that space of, I don't know what I don't know. And I'm on this journey of unlearning and learning and practicing. It's all a part of the journey. Um, and so we know that whether you're live with us or watching the playback, if you are newly, if you're somebody who's just graduated or getting ready to graduate, congratulations, you are in the right place. We are here to offer you tips and advice. And if you're somebody who's been in the field and really mentors and loves supporting other new people, welcome here too. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments the advice that you share or the things you wish you would have known. Like, this community is for us to really be in conversation. So please do, vibe out, share in the comments, and we love to be in conversation with you, because a lot of what Sequoia and I are talking about are things that we wish we knew too. Things that we wish we would have been guided upon in our journey. And be sure to say hi too while you're at it. Okay, so the guiding question for today is what we wish we knew. Tips that we offer for new social work grads, guidance, tips, advice, things that we'd like for you all to consider and prepare for. And the way that we're going to do it today is we're going to each share some tips and advice. We'll go back and forth. I'll start with one, then Sequoia will go, then I'll go back and forth. We'll do that. And we want to invite sharing notes because as spiritual folks, the way that we are, sometimes we get downloads, y'all. Things might just come that are not in our notes. And you might want to just, listen out for it if that happens. So what I actually wanted to talk about, maybe start off with, is maybe more practical, but I know that's usually what people are really anxious about is work, looking for work. How do you prepare? How do you prepare looking for work while you're finishing up grad school, right? What are some sort of tips and advice you would offer somebody who's on that journey, or you just graduated and you're looking for work? Um, I There's a lot of great advice on YouTube and on the internet, so just know that I encourage you to do that too. Some of the tips that I'll offer will be a little different, but one of the things I want to invite people to do is to consider like applying for jobs, whether they're macro or micro. I know that in our program, there's a lot of emphasis in, oh, you're on the macro track and you're on the micro track. But really, they're preparing us for both tracks. Like the field, even if you're like in one specialty, if there are jobs that you're drawn to, apply to those jobs. Don't feel like you have to box yourself into a particular specialty. This is also connected to licensure. I remember many of my friends who were on the macro track didn't get any kind of support around the exam, even in my clinical track. And I remember encouraging new people, take the exam anyway, even if you're not going to do quote unquote clinical work. take the LSW exam. If you imagine that in the future you might want it, I think it's a little, because it's so fresh in your mind being in the program, it might be better to take the exam like when you're like, coming out of grad school, or maybe in the last couple of weeks of your program. It's so much harder to come back to it. So that's something I would offer. um, I think I'll stop there. I have more work tips, but I'll stop there.
Okay. Those were um those were amazing tips and I completely agree. Um I feel like one of the other places that has kind of gotten a lot of traction and definitely has been trending is around quiet quitting. And I wanted to talk about that more in the social work kind of context, and absolutely applies to preparing for work. So, one of the one of the ways that I was thinking about quiet quitting in the social work context is related to practicums, and that practicums are really the foundation for this concept of quiet quitting in the social work context. And so, quiet quitting, if for those that haven't heard that or again are new to the term, um, that is when you are in a particular role and really only doing the responsibilities, the tasks that you are paid for or what you got hired for, not the additional kind of tasks or responsibilities that are assigned to you after getting the job, and then also can be absolutely based on, what type of identity you hold as well. And so I feel like practicums are the foundation for quiet quitting in the sense of when we go into our practicums, they are seen as opportunities for us to wear a lot of different hats, get a lot of different experience related to these opportunities. But I feel like not only from my own personal experience, but then, places that I've talked to other students, coach folks, related to supervision and things of that nature, is that we learn in our practicum to take on a lot of responsibilities. And I feel like if you are not engaged in some type of unlearning process, practice, decolonizing, that carries over into your work environment. You get messages in your practicum about taking on a lot of responsibilities and tasks and wearing all these different hats. You get messages that that's valued. And so that is carried over into your work environment. And so when we think about that in relation to this quiet quitting piece, I feel like it sets up this dynamic where it becomes difficult for you to even negotiate like what kind of salary you're supposed to have because you're so used to, you're almost programmed to take on responsibilities that are outside of your job title, because there's already been this foundation set up where that's seen as value, that taking on more than you're supposed to, that is where the value is. I don't know if that's making any sense.
Oh my gosh, it's totally making sense. And it's connected to why burnout is inevitable in our profession. I was kind of listening listening to a few like social workers who were offering like their own tips, and I appreciate it, but some of the things I struggle with is that we keep telling social workers the best way to not experience burnout is to prevent it, but it assumes that we can control a system that perpetuates burnout. Like it actually makes no sense if we're being burned out in our field placements and our practicum, right? Because a lot of what we're told is, oh, you're supposed to be well-rounded and you're broadening your like expertise, so you got to do all the things. That's why I often tell people apply to every job. Like you don't have to do just clinical track. You have the skills as a macro practitioner too, right? Because that's partly why we did these practicums, to have the experience of being a well-rounded social work professional. But yeah, I think the truth of it is that burnout is inevitable, and we should try to live in a system where prevention is possible. But the truth of it is that we have to learn what burnout is, learn the types of burnout that exist. Sequoia mentioned it in episode 7 of our podcast, a new article that she read. We can put it in the comments, but that article really resonated for me. The Harvard Business Review one, the 3 types of burnout, um, like the neglect, overlooked, overloaded. I think the truth of it is that we have to learn to identify burnout. We can try to prevent it, but we are gonna. It already happened in our programs. I can imagine. I would love to hear for those who are tuning in. How many of you already experienced burnout in your field placement in your practicum?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so y'all, we all have amazing skills as practitioners, as social work practitioners. So apply to all the jobs you want. Negotiate your salary. Please negotiate your salary. Don't take what they offer. You can ask. You can ask for the rate that you feel like you're worth. And if they can't give you quote unquote an amount, think about your like amenities and benefits. Like what's your like PTO like? What's your vacation time? You might have to get in that nitty gritty because those are the things they don't talk to us in our profession. But you deserve to ask for the salary and the benefits that you know that you are entitled to, especially when we're talking about burnout. And quiet quitting is powerful. I mean, I know that in art, maybe like it was work to rule. I like the term quiet quitting, to be honest. I just love like alliterations and words, but I think it's true. I think there's a way that we want to encourage y'all to even imagine that you don't have to go into these jobs with that same kind of experience you had in practicum, if that makes sense. Like, yes, there was a lot. I mean, I remember my practicum experience. I was working so many hours plus juggling full-time caseload and a child, like course load and a child. And it seemed like the norm. Like people just expected us to do that. And so many of us were burned out. And we paid for that experience. I'll stop there.
We do, we do pay for that. We do pay for that experience. I have a friend who is currently in a social work program and kind of has the same experience like what you just described. Your first one, being a parent and having one baby. One of the things that I told her, before she started was, it's going to be a lot of work and work in the sense of there are a lot of readings, and so you have to pick which readings that you're going to actually do for that week because every class is going to assign like 15 read like and I can only speak from what my program experience was, um so you have to pick like what you're going to like focus your attention on, what you can and can't do throughout the week, um, and be okay with it the best that you can. Um, it's a lot of writing, and then on top of the practicum hours, and then the majority of practicums, you're not being paid for that time. So you're more than likely working in some capacity, some kind of way, even if it's work study. So it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah, and I think what you're also inviting too for those newly graduates, like organization's important, but it's also like discernment, like making a decision about what you can handle and being able to like put some things aside because there is a lot of paperwork in our field. I think I know that we experience it in practicum. There's so much paperwork, like, and a lot of these agencies that we end up working for aren't resourced in that way to kind of have, you know, systems in place where things are electronic. Like we have to imagine that our organization, we just have to really fine tune it and be kind to ourselves because we're most of us are really in it for being in community, right, and supporting people, and those other pieces really can burn us out, can really like
Mhm,
take from us.
mhm,
um yeah, for sure.
mhm,
I I did want to say something around work and like the culture, because we have been talking about workplace culture and how our practicum and field placement experiences are introducing us to what workplace culture is like. Like if you're in a really good field placement, you're also making assessments, right? You're also learning about the organization and the culture. You're learning about where the resources are, distributed, the dynamics. You're looking at systems, right? Like we're doing that work in our practicum. Um, and what I want to encourage you when you're looking for work is to also ask those questions at these agencies. Like, what's their culture like? How do they navigate burnout? Is there wellness practices in place? And it's not really about the answer, y'all. It's really, I mean, I'm gonna say something really off cuff, but it's not really about the answer. Like, yes, it's helpful what they say, but it's also about you making an assessment. Like, is this the right fit for me? Right? Like, if they're not open to at least considering right possible interventions that will promote wellness and burnout prevention, like that might not be the right place for me. So, like, your job in these interviews is to make assessments, and ask all the questions you have. Do not hesitate because your job is to also interview them too. Like we have a lot of power, I would say, in this pandemic age. Like quiet quitting is a powerful force where people are deciding, I'm not going to put up with that anymore, you know? And I think that's the beauty of quiet quitting. Like people are making decisions about what they're not going to put up with because we know time is so precious. Our this moment is so precious. We don't get this moment back. So why enter into a setting that would actually impact our health negatively, right? Or
Mhm,
cause burnout.
mhm,
And I know so many of us are awakening to that. I see it in like younger folks or people who are coming out of the field. They're making decisions like, do I really want to do that? Do I want to get my license? Do I want to go into private practice? Do I want to do social work in this way? So, ask all the questions. Do not be discouraged. You deserve to
mhm,
know what's going on at that agency, and you deserve to know
mhm,
what you're getting into.
mhm. I I just wanted to add something to what you were just saying to affirm this piece about societal cultural shift and the time of the pandemic and why this time is a little bit different. Um, and I was listening to somebody on TikTok, and I want to say this just to kind of affirm what I know that we're all feeling, and that it is real. Like people are engaging in this type of pushback related to the environments that we work in. We have the Great Resignation, this quiet quitting piece. This push around. And even though labor unions have, been around forever, there's a different kind of energy around it, I would say, especially from like big corporations like Amazon and so on and so forth. And the person on TikTok was saying that one of the reasons that this work environment and the revolution around work right now is so different from previous years is because so many people in the work environment right now are some of the most educated people at this kind of point in time. Like, it's not just folks that have like high school educations and like bachelor's degree. We're talking about people with masters and PhDs who are like, I'm not going to be working in this kind of environment, you know? And so what that means is that there's a different kind of way to look at strategy and approach about how you're pushing back. Also not just related to value, but predominantly like you just said, Biani, we pay for these experiences where it's really hard. And so when you think about that in terms of what capacity you have, what you're willing to take, what you're not willing to take, and that kind of gets into a little bit of where I'm going when we kind of transition to our next piece. Um, Folks are not taking these toxic work environment
Yep.
dynamics anymore.
And we have to hold, like, we won't know what the effects of this pandemic, like, we won't know fully the effects of the pandemic until we're like out of it, I would say. That's just my opinion. And if you don't agree, cool, please let me know in the comments. Like, we would love to have a conversation. But I think the experiences that we've had these last 3 years have helped people make decisions about what they're willing to do and not do. Like we've had to navigate like how precious life is in a 3 year like grief journey, and so I totally am with you on that. Like and yeah, a lot of us are making really huge decisions with student loan debt. Like it's very courageous after getting into student loan debt to be like, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna put up with this. Like, my life is too precious. I've had a lot of loss. Like, people are gone, and I'm gonna sit here and work 9 to 12 hours a day, and you don't appreciate me, or like, I think that's value. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, yeah, like, it's absolutely important. And also, social workers are so needed right now. So we want to encourage, we want to affirm, like, ask all the questions, make your assessments, take your time. Don't take the first job when you graduate. Sit with it, pause, lean on your community, like, go with your intuition. Like, you get to, really make your decision based on what you really need and want. But we can move on to
Mm-hmm.
the next topic.
Do you want to hop in there?
Oh, I'd rather you kick it off, because I don't know if I'm on the same wavelength, but I
Okay.
can, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to talk about, again, just continuing this piece on practicums, because I feel like, there is, I don't feel like there is support around that part of the social work program that is realistic or affirming. Like for myself, we had this like class that we would take. Um, it was at least one part of the semester for the practicum. And, it was a time where we could come together. We would do like group activities process. But if there was a real issue, um, related to a practicum not being a fit or it being, a place where you felt unsafe, um, there were some different dynamics that came up. And so I just wanted to, just highlight that practicums can be traumatic environments. And when you graduate from your social work program, you might need to take some time to really process that, especially as like a QT BIPOC identified person. There have been, student experiences where you go into a practicum and these practicum environments, you experience white supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, and then you go back to your institution, to your social work program, and then you have to prove that that's what your experience was, all the while holding that you're supposed to get a grade from this experience, you know? And so that's institutional violence. And I just want to affirm that, for students, but then also for folks that you don't have to be a recent graduate, even if you're just, listening to us and you're reflecting on your time in grad school, like I want to affirm that was institutional violence that you experienced. Maybe it was only in the practicum and you went to your program and they advocated for you the way that they were supposed to, but also, there are times where, again, that's not the case, where you have to prove that that's what's going on. And just the psychological impacts of that, the trauma that you experience from that, that's significant. That means something. And I don't feel like that's acknowledged, talked about, and affirmed enough. Um, I feel like sometimes because it's not, you get in these environments and you feel gaslit, like that's not what your experience was, or it couldn't be like that because you don't hear anybody else talking about that. But that absolutely happens. And if that's what your experience, if that's what you experience and that's what you're experiencing, that is definitely a thing. And so related to tips, what I would say around that would be, your spiritual practices, kind of the same things that we implement when we're in the workforce and in the field and things like that. Writing things down, sending yourself emails when certain things happen, knowing who your support system and allies are, and I use the word allies very loosely. What else do I have here? Oh, and then a community, either a peer support community or other community folks, that will affirm that experience for you. And I hope that those that might be listening, see Biani and I as potentially community, to just affirm those experiences.
Oh, I love those. And thank you for affirming that for us, both new and old, because I really wish I wish I knew that when I graduated, just for me personally, that I needed time to heal and recover from being at a PWI, and also navigating like the white supremacist behavior, and then the intersectional trauma, like also being in community with folks that looked like me but weren't intersectional, and that trauma. And then yeah, we do have to hold that a lot of these practicums um, perpetuate harm and cause us harm, and we do need to recover. I wish somebody would have told me like to take that time, and I'm glad that Sequoia is telling us now, like just reminding us to take that time to like recover, reconnect to yourself and be in community with those that really support you, because it is hard, y'all. And then we're expected to just jump back into the work and be there for others and self-sacrifice. So that's what I wanted to add. Like, I think one of the struggles, and we mentioned this in our previous episodes around what we need to unlearn, but here's an advice. Like, here's a tip. Really work on unlearning that self-sacrificial martyrdom, that savior complex that they try to drill down us. Like, this is what they feed us in this like in these trainings and schools, trying to tell us that we have to sacrifice who we are to be helping and caring and being in support and holding space for community. Please, y'all, let's reframe this. Let's enter this field knowing that we don't have to give up who we are, and we don't have to be less of who we are. We really have to make space for um, like authenticity, make space for knowing when our cup is empty, and knowing that we have to refill it. And that means we might have to take some mental health days or some self-care days, even if the place that you work at, and I know this is hard, y'all. I know this is hard. I'm not talking about the practice, but you're hearing from two folks who've been in the field. I just want you to know, give yourself permission to take the time for your health, um, for your sanity, for you taking care of yourself. Because if we buy into that belief that we have to be self-sacrificial, burnout is inevitable. If we buy into that belief that self-sacrifice is how we do the work, that self-sacrifice is how we practice as a social worker, we will not last in this field. We will not last. Either because we are burned out, or because our health issues will like catch up to us in a way, like. And it's really sad, because as much as I think this is where, we talk about ritual, and Sequoia was mentioning ritual. um, this is where I want to invite people to think about what your rituals are. Like, what are your practices for preparing for your day, taking care of yourself? I'll give an example. I noticed when I was working at a really stressful job, I would get there really early and set up the room. I would bring my crystals. I would light incense, even though I know they were like, oh, you can't have incense. I would light it way before I had a session just for me. I would meditate, call in my ancestors. I would do bibliomancy. Like, I would really take care of myself. It was kind of like equipping myself with my like kind of protection. And those became rituals for me. And those helped me show up for the folks I was holding space for. And I held on to my sacredness and I held on to spiritual work, even when our programs try to act like the work we're doing is not spiritual. So lean on y'all know what y'all like, everybody knows. Well, I think I'm freezing, sorry. We know what those practices are. Lean on them, call them back to you. They belong with you and they belong in your work. Um, and self-sacrifice is not the way that we help the folks we're serving. So we really, let's try to unlearn that. That's my short, I'll stop there.
No, I think that was beautifully said, and resonates so much. Um, I feel like, that piece on the protection that you mentioned, like what was coming to mind for me was like um like spiritual barriers, um setting up kind of a force field around yourself, like that whole mantra of, if you say that you're going to have a good day, it's going to be a good day, regardless of what happens and what goes on. If you know and believe and say that you're going to have a good day, you are. Um, and I think that's really important, especially if you just know what kind of work environment you're in. Like I don't, for anybody that's listening to this, I don't want to come off unrealistic. I don't want to come off as if, I don't understand like applying for jobs, and then you finally get one, and then it's not the environment that is supportive to your mental health. And sometimes you have to make a decision, about your livelihood. And that's very real, that's very understandable, and that is a lot of our stories, and also like knowing that if you know that that is the kind of environment that you're in, ensuring that you do have practices in place for yourself that allow you to take care of yourself in those spaces, and also know that not gaslighting yourself to think that it's going to get better, right? Like you need to be working on what your plan is to get out of that situation. Because again, a lot of times, especially in like community mental health, social service, human services, because those environments are attached to systems or they are the system, um, it is what it is.
Thank you for sharing that. Cause we want to remind you like we know y'all, like we've been in settings where, I mean, my first job out of grad school, I was working, I'm actually a little nervous to say, but I was seeing so many clients, like almost 40 clients a week. And that 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 was partly because that's what I was doing so much of that in my practicum, like seeing so many clients juggling all these things. And the pay isn't that, when you're going into a community agency or group practice, it's not really good pay, like, so you have to see more clients. All that to say is that I did all my protection spells, all my spiritual work. And then I also, like what Sequoia said, and then I also knew, oh, it's time for me to go, baby. Like this is the right place, right? Like those that spiritual work really helped me see, oh, this system isn't right. Like this is not right.
Hmm.
This is not
Hmm.
conducive to I'm not gonna thrive here. I'm in survival mode. I'm unwell. I'm always sick. I was always sick. And yeah, I think, we talked about rituals. This is how we started our episode. We're also talking about rituals. Like we're inviting you to think about rituals and how you're going to need those rituals and protections and grounding practices in every season of your career. You'll need something different, whether that's like taking vitamins. I have a light therapy that I use in the winter, and I have it in my office, and I have it here at home. I take more vitamin D. I eat and drink more warm foods, like only, just like you have your sort of like medicine that you need for each season. And Yeah, we want you to have like a protection force field around you. Sometimes you don't have the time to get there early before you start your workday. I do it between like sessions. I'll do a guided meditation where I have a protection bubble around me, or I charge a crystal during meditation, and that's the crystal I'm holding in my pocket or in my hand when I'm supporting a family. Um, you know, this is how y'all and this is how we invite spiritual work into our work. Like we take care of ourselves, and then we're able to sort of really serve our clients. But yeah, think about how you build your toolkit. This is also like, and set an intention for that. Oh,
Mhm.
Wednesday's a long day. Okay, so this is what I might need this week. I mean, this day I might need more water. I might have to play some music. um, I might have to get, go for a walk, go outside. Did I take my vitamin D today? Did I take my, supplements? Whatever you need that really feeds you. um,
Mhm.
Sometimes I pull tarot cards before a session, or if I have a family I'm serving, or a child, they love tarot. Or we're gonna do tarot today, or we're gonna draw today. Your journaling practice, whether journaling is a powerful. I know we had to do like process recordings. I don't know what they called it in your. Did they call it the same? Okay, I really
Yes.
like process recordings. I don't like the way that it gets graded. I don't see the point of grading it, but that is a journaling practice. It could be a really therapeutic journaling practice. So I often encourage people, it's not about taking notes about your case, but record how you felt, what you
Mhm.
felt in your body, what thoughts
Mhm.
came up, what memories came up for you, right? Like stay with that, and really explore that, whether you're like writing it, moving to it, doodling. Um, y'all, we have to invite ritual into our work, and we have to be intentional too, like making space for that in our practice. I think yeah, those are the tips that are coming to mind.
Okay. I want to offer that we kind of move into our main takeaways. It sounds like, that you kind of started that a little bit for us, just kind of recapping um, places that we really want to like drive home certain tips. Was there anything additional that you want to add for main takeaways?
Just remember, like, learn the types of burnout that exist, and please do that work of reflecting on the experiences of burnout you had, so that you know what your like points are, like those activation points. Ritual, for sure, ritual. Ask questions, negotiate your salary. Those are the kind of takeaways that are coming up for me. What about you, friend?
Yeah, I think main takeaways for me would be, your experience is your experience. I just want to affirm, that if there were certain parts of your social work program that just, felt misaligned, that were misaligned, they absolutely were. And that there is again, like even if you're not a recent grad and you're listening to this and you're just reflecting with us your experience of grad school, there's absolutely, no time like the present to still unpack some of that stuff, because it could have, if you haven't thought about it, like maybe you have an aversion to wanting to go back to school or take a course right now or get some type of licensing,
Mm-hmm.
continuing education certificate or something like that, you may have a mistrust for certain environments because of your experience in social work programs, and those things are very real and again attached to institutional violence. Um, and yeah, like reflecting on that time is really it can be beneficial. It can be beneficial for a lot of different reasons. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure. Oh, and other main takeaway, definitely please consider Biany and I, a community to kind of reflect on some of those things and just check in about. Um, I feel like, and again, that's another reason why that's attached to me affirming those experiences. I went to the University of Michigan, and at the time it was, one of the number one school for social work, and I did not have that great of an experience, you
Mm.
know? And so I say all that to say that it happens. There are ways to continue to process those things. And if that was your experience in other programs, you know, it be like that sometimes. It be like that sometimes.
Yeah, we do want to normalize. Like I'm still, I think I said it in the first in our first season. I'm still kind of recovering from the program, and it's been almost 10 years. Like it's we like there's still some points of healing, and Sequoia's right. Like just know that we are a part of the community too. Like we've been there. We've been there. And
Yeah.
as somebody who's getting ready for this journey, you know, please be kind to yourselves. Know that this unlearning journey takes practice, and we're with you. You know, so feel free to reach out to us, whether in the comments or hit us up on. You know, we have like our information on our website or even on IG. Um, we're here as a resource, and we want to make sure that, um, yeah, that we don't take we don't bring those things that we were taught with us on our journey, that we unlearn those things. And we want to offer that medicine to you. Like we're unlearning it, you're going to unlearn it. And we want you to kind of take that with you on your journey. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks on October 24th for another live episode, episode 10, season 2,
We in the
where
double
we're going to
digits.
yeah, yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. So we are excited to have a conversation on where spiritual practitioners answer, how do you know the difference between intuition, anxiety, fear, and doubt? And definitely join us again where we're going to talk about these things and process and just continue with this unlearning piece. You know, I think that this conversation about again, knowing the difference between intuition and anxiety and things like that ties heavily into your ability to unlearn. Um, we're looking forward to it.
Yay. Yeah, y'all, we're so excited. And we say that every episode, but you know, we're doing this because we wish this existed when we were new students like you. We were new grads like you. So just know that this is coming from the heart and we're here for you. And if you have any questions or want to reach out, y'all got our information.
Hmm.
So this concludes episode 9. Thank you so much for being in community with us and supporting a heart centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, identity, and ancestral connections through the lens of tarot, divination, mysticism, mental health, and everything in between. Excuse me. We would love to stay connected and build a spiritual healing and community, like we've been saying. Please hit us up if you need anything over email. Like if you have questions about your journey, subscribe to our YouTube page, our Reclaiming Soul Work podcast. Once you subscribe, you will get a reminder. You can set a reminder for notifications when we release new episodes. You can also sign up at the landing page on our website to be notified when we have a new episode and for future offerings. You can also sign up to our free newsletter, the first quarter moon. That's sort of like a monthly-ish newsletter with news offerings, updates, and kind of musings on podcast episodes. And yeah, again, we're Reclaiming Soul Work podcast, and we'll see y'all in 2 weeks.